Hello, everyone. For the lesson today, we're going to be doing a case study on a person who is very significant to American westward expansion. The title of this lesson is A Case Study of Sitting Bull. And yes, that is this person's name. The English translation, I should say. So, I'm going to do a read aloud. Why was Sitting Bull considered a hero to the Lakota Sioux tribe during the westward expansion time period? Reading material. Sitting Bull was born in the early 1830s, an approximation since the Indians had no calendars like ours, and gave indications of a distinctive personality from an early age. He was nicknamed Slow because, even as a baby, he was deliberate in all his actions, not even putting food in his mouth until he examined it carefully. By the time he was 14, he had established himself as a hunter of cunning and courage. And while still a boy, he had survived a solo encounter with a grizzly bear. His father, Sitting Bull, showed his love and pride in his son by giving him his own name and taking another. The new Sitting Bull gained recognition as a warrior when he defeated a member of a Crow hunting party and was honored that night in a victory dance at the center of the circle teepees. These teepees are what we call tents. That's where many of the Native American tribes of the West lived. And the Crow is not the animal, but that's the name of another tribe that was, I would say, a competing tribe in that region. In those days, before the coming of the American settlers, save for an occasional wandering trader or trapper, life was good for an Indian boy, especially if he belonged to one of the powerful Sioux tribes, such as Sitting Bull's tribe, the Hunkpapa. Sitting Bull had a carefree boyhood, free of almost all constraints and duties, except the ritual rising each morning in time to greet the rising sun, a duty performed by all Sioux. Almost the entire Sioux culture was based on the buffalo, which teemed on the Great Plains in millions. Buffalo meat was the chief food of the people, and they made use of every part of its body. Buffalo hide provided them with clothing, bedding, tents, carrying bags, harnesses, and boats for crossing rivers. For as long as the buffalo grazed on the plains in countless numbers, the Sioux culture was secure. The coming of the white men was to lead to the disappearance of the herds, and with them, the decline of the Sioux nation. When you read this on your own, zoom in on this picture, you'll see how the many of the Native American tribes of the Great Plains use every single part of the buffalo, even the droplings for number two, if you know what I mean, in terms of their entire way of life. There was always a use for every part of the buffalo. No such future could be dreamed of as young Sitting Bull approached manhood, developing physically, mentally, and even spiritually as he underwent certain traditional Sioux tests of endurance. He was still a teenager when he killed a golden eagle with his bare hands, thus earning the cherished right to wear its tail feathers in his war bonnet. As the years passed, Sitting Bull became accepted as a chief of the Hunkpapas. Even other Sioux tribes went to him with their concern about the white men. who were appearing in increasing numbers in the Indian hunting grounds. Sitting Bull had no more time than other Indians for the intruders, but he believed for a while that there was room for all in the Greater Plains. In time, however, the wagons of the invaders stretched from horizon to horizon, and their horses and cattle grazed the ground almost bare. Sitting Bull kept his patience, even as the trickle of settlers became a flood, and a telegraph line was slung from tall poles across the plain. In 1868, an historic treaty was signed, giving the people control of their tribal lands and excluding the military from such lands. For a time, there was peace. However, a famous soldier, Custer, whom the Indians called Longhair, led his soldiers into the sacred Black Hills. Custer spread the word that there was large amounts of gold in the Black Hills, and Sitting Bull was invited to sell some of the land there. When Sitting Bull refused, Custer came back to the Black Hills with his soldiers, who were wiped out in the Battle of Little Bighorn. This battle was glamorized in an American folklore as Custer's Last Stand. Though his people had no more than defend themselves, Sitting Bull knew they would be given no peace. He proposed they should leave their land and migrate to the land of the grandmother, Canada. After some time in Canada, Sitting Bull was persuaded to give himself up to an army fort on a promise of freedom and pardon for his past actions. After some time in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, that was a show that basically it was a group of people who put a performance together to sort of satire or go over the exploits of what happened during westward expansion. It was done in theaters, they've traveled everywhere, and Sitting Bull, for whatever reason, agreed to be part of that show. Sitting Bull eventually settled on a reservation in Grand River. He was killed in 1890 as a result of a dispute with the police officers who were stationed at the reservation. He was accused of trying to start an uprising on the reservation. Many historians, regardless of their view of western expansion, almost universally agree that Sitting Bull's actions were always based on what he considered was right and just. Native Americans of many tribes and nations see him as a symbol of the courage and honor of the Indians of the Great Plains. His legacy is a testimony to what they lost during America's expansion. Sitting Bull. Now, for the activity that we're going to do for this lesson involves two parts. First, you're going to complete a character web relating to Sitting Bull. I'm going to showcase what the character web looks like. This is a character web. Now, in a character web, and we're going to be doing this throughout some of the lessons that we're going to be doing throughout the year when we focus on individuals, you write a brief biography of the person you're focusing on, and then you develop 5 character traits that you could attribute to that person. Now, I want to be clear. Character traits are not considered physical traits, meaning is the person tall? Is the person muscular? It's not how they physically look or some of their physical attributes. It's the inside, their profile, their personality. I'm also going to provide a series of character traits, a list of character traits that you could look at so that you could develop more sophisticated vocabulary. Think about words such as admirable, agreeable, okay? articulate, aspiring, if these are positive traits. This link has pages that are has about 27 pages of different character traits, both positive and negative. So I want you to really think of attributes you could attribute to the people when we do these type of activities. I don't want to simply see nice, sweet, kind. I want more sophisticated words. But we'll talk more about that during my direct instruction. So you have to come up with 5 character traits you could attribute to Sitting Bull. Now, for each character trait, you have to provide evidence. The evidence can be from the informational sources that I provide or research on your own. So you most definitely can use this PowerPoint for finding character traits relating to Sitting Bull and be able to support it with evidence from the text. The evidence you could literally copy and paste from whatever source you find. And the final part of the character web is to come up with your own personal reflections. Basically, talk about how you think that person was a significant person in history, and you can provide reflections on their legacy. What is their greatest contribution you feel to life and history? So that's the first activity, that is the character profile. Now, after you complete the character profile, the next activity is to create an interview. You're going to pretend you're a reporter who has the opportunity to interview Sitting Bull about his life and times, and then you're going to come up with questions to ask of Sitting Bull. Now, this is not a separate activity. The interview connects with the character web. What you do is you take information that you come up with from the brief biography that you have to write about him, which will be in your own words. You take information from the character traits that you attribute to him. You use the evidence and the personal reflections to create this interview. So, example, the first question could be, Mr. Sitting Bull, please tell me a little bit about yourself. And then the answer could be the information that you derive from the brief biography. Some of the remaining questions that you could ask relate to some of the character traits attributed to him. And the answers for that character trait question could be the evidence that you have. And you finally end the interview with the personal reflections. The last couple of questions should be how he feels his legacy should be remembered. That type of question. Okay? Now, the interview as a minimum should have at least, I should say, 6 questions, and for the 6 questions you come up with 6 responses. Okay? And this is actually going to be the first activity where I'm going to allow people, if they want, to work in groups. But we'll talk more about that later, if you are in the live discussion as I'm doing this lesson. If you're not here, you're going to have to work on your own. Okay? So that's the activity. I'm also going to be providing another informational source. It's a video about Sitting Bull. Well, I'm going to do that in another post. This is the activity. Thank you very much.